Welcome, everyone. My name is Katie Dunn. I am thrilled that you are all here today to join me in preparation for volunteering not only your time, but also your skills to help a group of older newcomer students that are in our community. They're working very hard to learn a new language, but also a new way of living. I have been working with English language learners for several years now, and I cannot express how important it is for these young adults to connect with their community members to not only practice their new language, but also learn to navigate their new country as well. I know that we all have different experiences when it comes to volunteering in the community, but this opportunity is going to make a large difference in the lives of these students and their families as well. So if you will join along with me, we're going to transition over to our slideshow. All right. So officially, we are here to learn how and to practice volunteering with young adult English language learners. So this is an interactive presentation, and it will be much more enjoyable for you with your participation and your responses. If you will go to slido.com and enter this code you see on the screen in green, you will be able to access the interactive portion of this presentation. So I'll give you just a second to do that. Okay. So slido.com and then hashtag N729. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue. This code will be on the screen throughout the entire presentation. So if you get booted out, just remember Slido, SLIDO.com. All right, so we do have some learning outcomes for this lesson today. And the first one is to understand and demonstrate the use of technical vocabulary and language that is necessary for passing a driver's license test. We will also be able to apply simple learning and studying strategies that are appropriate for working with young adult English language learners. So experiences. We all do have different types of experiences. So we're going to start with a quick icebreaker. If you will please share your name or tell me your name and any experiences that you have with volunteering in the past. That would be great. And you can do this one of two ways. You can do this in the Slido chat box where it says Q&A and ask a question or respond, or you can speak out. Now is a great time to do that.
I'll go first. I'm Casey. In my experience, volunteering is a good way to recognize privilege as someone who is a natural-born U.S. citizen with predetermined socioeconomic advantages. By volunteering in different conditions within my community and also with people differing in disadvantages, I get to see what the absence of privilege means and how kindness can affect individuals and minorities who are facing harder challenges than others. I feel that volunteering and choosing to help others is one of the only ways to understand the overwhelming inequality that people experience day to day, and maybe to help contribute to positive change in that regard.
That's great. I really like that you talk about positive change and being the change. And that's really what this lesson and learning about how to volunteer with ELL students is all about. So I think you'll really benefit from this. So thanks for sharing your insight.
No problem. Thanks.
I've got something to share as well. Hi, my name is JJ Yarley. In the past, I volunteered with the Florida Park Service where I gave tours. This was before COVID-19 shut down all group activities, but what I really enjoyed about it was that every weekend I'd go out and share the same story about the park, but I would also always hear different stories back from the community, oftentimes personal histories with the parks or people's own experiences from all over, all kinds of different backgrounds. And I think it's just a very enriching experience.
For sure. It sounds like you did a lot of great work and you were able to meet and interact with a lot of people who are not only just experiencing something for the first time, but also being able to share stories with them. I think you as well, when you start to work with these newcomer students, you're also going to find the same type of situation and benefit from hearing their stories as well. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else out there? All right, well, just for the sake of time, we're gonna keep going. So on your Slido screen, you should see a question here. And before you answer this question, I want you to consider this situation. I want you to think back to the very first time you sat behind the driver's wheel. That was probably pretty exciting. And I want you to respond on your Slido with how you felt. But I also want you to think about the steps that it took to get that very important photo ID that declared that you were the licensed driver. What was that experience like? How did that make you feel? So you can respond by typing your thoughts on the slide, and we'll see them as you respond. We'll talk about them. Somebody responded with it was nerve-wracking. For sure, you're in charge of a motor vehicle that weighs a lot. It was scary and exciting. It was scary as all get out, for sure. I know it was for me. Just parking the car was very scary. So much paperwork, right? Absolutely nervous. There's a lot of feelings that go into play with all of these. Now, as you respond and you're looking at each other's comments, imagine going to a new country where you have only a very little understanding of the language and the laws. What would be the most challenging aspect of moving to that new country? And I don't want you to answer that. I just want you to keep that in the back of your brain, because that's really going to let you get some insight into how it would feel as a newcomer. Fantastic, because yeah, absolutely, the freedom. Who is driving since they were 12? Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Mr. Yarley has them.
Well, alrighty then. You know what? You're gonna learn a little bit about our newcomer students, because so have they. All right, thanks for adding your thoughts there. All right, so let me jump into some of the research. Research findings in the area of vocabulary are very strong, but when it comes to English language learners, there are effective learning strategies that you can use. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is just a very short, simple way to help them when you're working one-on-one, looking at the questions. And so here's some of the ideas. You can do recitation, repeat after me. You can do listening to the words. You can speak very slowly with them and let them watch your mouth while you are speaking to them. You can use the new vocabulary words in context. Well, we're helping them practice for their driver's license exam. Talk to them about pushing the brake, about using the different tools on a vehicle, about the different situations. You're going to be able to use those words with them directly in the context in which they will see on their test. You can also work with them on memorizing the vocabulary words, following up with explanations of why these words are important. Another good tool, and I use this with my students often, is writing down the words in a journal and then including the translation, and even sometimes even just a little picture can also help. So these are just some ideas from current research that will help you as you start to work one-on-one with them. So when you got pulled over, what was that really like? I had a student, and I'm going to share a personal experience from my own, but I had a student last year, and he had been driving in his country for many years. It wasn't a big deal. He didn't think anything about it. So he comes to the United States, and he starts driving back and forth to work after school to McDonald's, and worked late until in the evening. Well, he was pulled over for running a stop sign, and he received a ticket and then later a court date. Unfortunately, this happens very often, and it's very scary for these kids, very, very frustrating for a newcomer, which is why it is so important for you to actually be able to help them. Because in the classroom, it's very difficult to squeeze in all the life skills that they need. So this is why we need you. So we're going to practice. We're going to examine some of the most difficult questions that people who speak English, like you and me, commonly miss when they take the written driver's license test. So some things I want you to watch for. Look for challenging words, things that don't make sense because of the way that they are written, or anything else that could be difficult for anyone to understand, not to mention the ones who can't even read or understand the language yet. So On your Slido, you will see this question and you will see the answers that you can respond to. So I want you to select the answer that you think is the most correct. So the question, you may cross a single solid white line in the highway. I see that it's there twice. When can you do that? Only during the daytime hours? Only at night? When an obstruction or traffic indicates a need? Or never? What do you think? Okay. All right, let's move on to the answers. So looks like most of you agreed with the correct answer, which is when an obstruction or traffic indicates a need. I'm glad you still remembered that question. The other answers, only at night, never. See, that question could be confusing for someone who's struggling with a single, solid, white line. So you have to break down those words so that they fully understand it. Otherwise, they're going to miss out and they could miss the question. All right, how about this one? What does a flashing yellow light mean? And your choices: merging traffic, proceed with caution, pedestrian crossing, or coming to a full stop. Just take your best guess. Okay. Responses? Hey, great. So this one was not as difficult. The terminology here is more simple. So this is not one you would want to spend a lot of time on, but looking at adjectives, flashing, yellow, there's some words in there that you can really clue in on just to help them, like, colors. That means something very important. The next question. On average, the human body can dispose of the alcohol in 12 ounces of beer in about 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, or 24 hours. Look at that. Okay. Everybody finished? Man, I have bad news. You're all wrong. It's 1 hour. That question could be tricky. This one is one of the most commonly missed. And you can look at it. We've got lots of words in this. It's a lengthy sentence. It can be very confusing, especially when your language, the word order of a sentence, can be very difficult and very different. All right. Oh, hey, good. All right, great. Got a couple more. Which of the following statements is true about the blood alcohol content? So you can read those and then choose the one that looks correct. When you have longer questions like this as well, it's important to allow a little bit of extra time because those are a lot of words for an English language learner to digest. And so it's important to break it down when you're working on some of these harder questions. Don't give up. You can do this. If it's hard for you, imagine how hard it is for someone who only knows just some of those words. What? Okay, let's see which one is correct. So, all right, much better. So the breathalyzer is a test of a person's blood alcohol content levels. That is correct. A chemical test for the BAC is needed for an alcohol conviction. Well, we're not really looking for that right now. We're looking for something that is actually true, but they can use that for an alcohol conviction. Okay, let's move on. This one is very confusing. Look at the length of this question. When two vehicles meet on a steep mountain road where neither can pass, which vehicle has the right of way? The vehicle that comes first, the vehicle traveling uphill, the vehicle traveling downhill, or both vehicles? Hmm. Okay, let's see. So again, not everybody's 100% sure. This is a very difficult question indeed. Not only is it long by the number of words that are in this question, but some of the words within that question are also difficult. So the correct answer is actually the vehicle traveling uphill. That is the correct answer. And so being able to help them look at these words for clues is also going to be very, very helpful. And knowing, well, what is uphill? What is downhill? Like that is not something that an English language learner is going to know right away. So you're going to need to be able to demonstrate in some way, whether it's with a picture or from going to Google and typing in downhill. And that way those words will start to stick and they will be less confusing. Okay. When parked facing uphill on the right side of the road with a curb, you should steer which way? All right, let's see. Away from the curb is correct. Oh, half and half. Okay, great. So this is another one of those questions. You have to know the terminology. Uphill, what does that mean? The right side of the road. If they don't know the words for right in English and left, they're really going to struggle with this type of a question. So even just teaching very simple basics, sometimes it can be very, very helpful when you're volunteering with newcomers. All right, let's see. If your vehicle is equipped with anti-lock brakes, when they engage, it is important to which one of these? Okay, let's see how you did. Keep your foot on the brake. Absolutely correct. Um, Again, this is another one of those situations. You need to just the basic vocabulary. Words like equipped can be used many, many different ways. And so helping them with just the root of this word, equip, can be very, very beneficial because they will be able to use that word in more than one way. Anti-lock brakes. Well, this is a technical term. This is very important that you actually, well, what does this do? Why is that important? Okay, and that's also an opportunity for conversation. If they drove a car in their country, did it have these things? All right. Another word, engage. What the world does that mean? Are you putting a ring on my finger? So there's many meanings to these words. So just some things to keep in mind. All right. So this is a time for you to engage a little bit. I want you to write down or add some text to this slide. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do this, but you're going to respond on this and then we'll discuss it. Okay. If you have any troubles, let me know. Okay. Can you think of anything else to add in there? Are there some other ways that you could possibly help volunteer? Sorry, my people just came home. Yay. Thank you. Thank you. Teaching online with a 3-year-old is very much part of our world now. It's definitely very different. Okay, so just understanding the words, absolutely, that could be very difficult. If you don't know what the words mean yourself, you could really struggle with this. And so I have some thoughts about that. I'll share them in just a few minutes. Okay. So from looking at your responses, some of you said, yes, English is a hard language to learn. It is. It's one of the most difficult to learn. Just understanding the words, yeah, that can be very, very difficult. I would offer a suggestion there, and that would be to keep your Google handy. Google has helped me more times than not in the classroom, especially when you're working with students who speak a language that you've never even heard of. And there are many languages out there. I can sometimes have in a classroom 25 different students and maybe 10 different languages, so it can be complicated. Positional words, absolutely. Knowing how to state the location of something is going to make the difference between possibly getting that question correct or missing it. Technical terminology. Using diagrams can be very helpful when you're working with technical terms, having a picture of a car up and with the specific, vocabulary that you're looking for can really help too. Speaking English. Yeah, just practicing speaking English can absolutely make a difference, and just hearing the words over and over will definitely make a difference with these kids. Confusing sentence structure, bullseye. Yeah, a lot of these questions are going to be very confusing, and that's why they are some of the most missed in the United States, and that's for your native English speakers. So it does make a difference, and being able to take these sentences and look for those key terms is really going to make a difference on how the students are successful. Okay, so I think I'm gonna pause this there. Do you guys have any questions before we move on from this screen? And you can call out and unmute yourself and add to it if you have a question. Okay. Great, I appreciate all of you participating with this. All right, so here's just some other ideas and tips for you. Explore the resources that are available to you. I've included a bit.ly link here, which has several resources for you to explore before you go to work and volunteer with these students, but also look over the questions in advance. Go to your state's DMV website and see what the questions are. Usually there's a handbook available. I would ask you to look to see if there's a translated version in their language. Some of these more diverse cities have driver's license bureaus with multiple languages available to them. But if you go to some smaller communities, that is very unlikely. So having Google Translate and a dictionary nearby is also going to be your best friend. Remember
Do
to
DMVs keep translators?
as far as people,
Yeah.
that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. I did do some research into this, and many of the DMVs do have interpretive services that can be used during the testing situations. You can ride along in the car to also, translate out the language needs. And so that is something. It does have to be scheduled in advance for that particular testing session. That way you have the translator or the interpreter there, or as well for the actual driving test. But it is available. So that as a volunteer, that is something you would also want to investigate. If it's a very common language like Spanish, there's 9 times out of 10 a Spanish translated version of the test, as well as a translator within the building. That would be more likely. But for other languages that are a little harder to come by, for instance, Kinyarwanda, Wolof, some of the other languages from Africa, there's many, many, many diverse languages. And so usually it will be a community member or interpreter who will come in and assist with that testing opportunity. The idea is to help these students be successful, and exploring all of those resources are really going to be of a benefit to them.
Do you think
Great
that's
question.
a cost that we would have to pay for? Or is that something that's provided for free?
The interpretive services, usually the people who volunteer to interpret, they provide their information to the driver's license offices. Most of the time it is voluntary. It's not, I would assume that there probably are instances where you would have to pay for it, but I would say that's very unlikely. I do know that there are community agencies, like here in Kentucky, we have the Kentucky Refugee Ministries, which has a whole division of volunteers who go out and assist with doctor's appointments, doing testing situations such as this, and helping these people try to overcome all of the barriers that they do get to, unfortunately. Yeah, exactly, as I draw a blank. But yeah, there's a lot of things that they have to overcome, but that's why volunteers from the community and understanding that these families, these people are here and that they do need a hand up, not a hand out, is, the idea of being a good neighbor.
Mrs. Dunn.
That's a great question. I am Katie Dunn, but I think we are pretty much close to wrapping up. Just two last things.
I want to say something. Are you there?
Oh, yes, please. Yes.
I want to say something to anyone who has never volunteered before.
Yes, please.
When you step into a brand new experience, especially when you're talking about older kids, it can be kind of a scary thing. But in my experience, I worked with adult ESL students, and what I discovered was they so want to learn. They want to just absorb everything that you can give them. And it's so important that you go in and you volunteer. It's the daily things like getting a driver's license that they need. So that's all I have to say.
I appreciate it. No, don't be afraid. Absolutely, because we learn from each other and we learn by doing. So working together makes a great partnership for our community. So thanks for your input. Remember, we are all in this to learn together, and you are going to all do great. I believe in you. You're going to be great. So to wrap us up, hopefully, and I am pretty confident that you understand now and that you will be able to demonstrate the use of our technical vocabulary and language that is necessary for passing a driver's license test. And that applying simple learning setting strategies that you got to see today, that they're appropriate for working with young adult English language learners. And I really appreciate all of you coming and participating. And I know that you will be successful in volunteering and really being the change for these learners and for their families. So thank you in advance. If you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to me. I will leave the chat up for a few minutes. And other than that, we are finished. Thank you again to all of you. Have a great weekend.